COVID-19 impact on the economy a concern. COVID-19 awareness ramps up in NCD schools. And PM to give evidence on April 21.
This is National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for Friday's news. Prime Minister James Marape will be giving evidence at the Commission of Inquiry into the UBS loan on 21st April in his capacity as then Finance Minister during the O'Neill-led government. Other persons also summoned by the Commission include former Prime Ministers Peter O'Neill and Pius Wingti and former Public Enterprise Minister Arthur Somare.
Last night, the Prime Minister, in a social media post, announced on Facebook that he was looking forward to attend the Commission of Inquiry. He posted, "Looking forward to attend the UBS inquiry tomorrow. Time to expose those who use PNG as their playground to make money. They have moved on or about affluence, but my country PNG still remains in man-made sinkhole. Tomorrow will be the first of many of my formal submission sessions to the COI." However, Marape arrived 30 minutes late for his brief appearance today before the Commission Chairman, Sesalamo India.
Those with criminal culpability or those who are found to have committed criminal offense will face their time under the sun, including companies. Ombudsman Commissioner is a constitutional body that looks at those of us who hold leadership offices per se, and those who need to be compliant to the leadership code. The inquiry opens the ambit of investigation beyond scope of leadership and look at everyone who had a hand in the transaction that goes beyond just the leadership realms. Feeding for the country. So 3 billion kina that belongs to people of this country who are involved in the entire UBS transaction. We need to go into the entire length and depth of this matter and to ascertain whether there's any act of improprieties in it. At the moment, let's allow the inquiry to this job, and that's why I'm here.
After a short adjournment, the Commission resumed and Marape, in a brief appearance, agreed to give evidence on the dates proposed by Chairman of the Commission, Sesalamo India. Marape is expected to provide evidence in both soft and hard format, including a list of witnesses to the Commission.
Some of the questions that the Commission will be more interested in is the proper role of the government in the economy and the government's policy on investment in not only state-owned enterprises, but also looking at the government policy in terms of the government's investment in what appears to be purely private business enterprises. And the Commission believes that your client has the necessary experience as the current Prime Minister to give this Commission some assistance in understanding the political economy of this country. Okay. The Commission has asked former Prime Ministers and former Finance Ministers, very senior public servants that assisted the government when Papua New Guinea got independence. And they continue to play a prominent role in the development of this country. Those witnesses have been called and they've appeared before the Commission, and the Commission has given them a date in the month of April to give that kind of evidence.
The Commission of Inquiry is anticipated to be completed by July 27th. However, things are going at a much slower pace. Those who have been summoned to appear at the inquiry are not turning up. The national government is yet to release funds to bring in barristers from overseas, and appointments for counsels assisting the Commission are yet to be confirmed. At this stage, the Commission is only sorting out dates and confirming the types of evidence that will be submitted and used during the inquiry. Theklagunga, National EMTV News.
About 10 missionaries from the Seventh-day Adventist Church were ambushed on Monday in the Payala district in Porgera Enga province. Local Western Highlands Mission SDA President Pastor Malakayani told EMTV News that the church could not confirm how many were killed during the ambush. The 10 included an evangelist, few church elders, some women and children who were destined for Komonga village when they met their fate. Pastor Yani said the church has received reports that the missionaries are believed to be killed by their enemies from a fight that ended decades ago. The missionaries were traveling from Porgera to Payala by car on Sunday and slept halfway before walking on foot with PA systems, projectors and other belongings to run a seminar at the remote Komonga village. The Revelation of Hope program is conducted concurrently in 248 sites of the Western Highlands Mission. The mission looks after churches in Jawaka, Western Highlands Province, Enga, Hela, Southern Highlands Province, parts of Western and Sundown provinces. More women in the highlands of PNG have some form of blindness compared to the rest of PNG. This was revealed by President of the Prevention of Blindness Committee of PNG, Dr. Jambi Garap, during PNG's launch of the World Health Organization World Report on Vision. PNG is the first country in the Pacific to launch the reports in the region.
The report was launched at the UPNG Medical School, witnessed by the National Prevention of Blindness Committee, its key partners, NGOs, global movements, health department staff and students from the university. The global report on vision encompasses the worldwide findings on vision and encourages action from governments and its people. According to the report, at least 2.2 billion people globally have problems with sight. In country, PNG has its share of problems, seeing the need to address simple eye conditions which have led to complete blindness.
So cataract and uncorrected refractive error, or the simple cataract needs a simple surgery, and the need to wear glasses are the highest causes of blindness in our country.
In PNG, over 11% of women in the highlands are faced with the prospect of blindness. That's the highest compared to others.
A person in the Pacific, it's like, if we equate it to the rest of the Pacific, it's like the country of Nauru, Kiribati, Tuvalu, and maybe Samoa, all put together, all blind. And that is how many of our people who are blind.
According to research, 4 barriers contribute to the cause nationwide. Firstly, people didn't feel they needed help when symptoms of blindness started to show. They were unaware there was treatment available, they could not access treatment, or because of the cost involved in getting to the required treatment or care. For treatment, estimates show a doctor for 800,000 persons. This is because of the less number of specialists in the field. The gap is widening with the ever-increasing population. However, the movement is gaining momentum with the great partners working together to reach the remote parts of the country to provide care. Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV News.
The Business Council of PNG and Young Missionary Alliance today announced their partnership. This partnership will see 10 interns who are members of Young Mission Alliance get exposure and working experience while still doing their studies. These interns are undergraduates from the University of Papua New Guinea.
10 students from the University of Papua New Guinea are now engaged with the Business Council of Papua New Guinea.
Currently in its 30th year, the Business Council continues with its mission to build a dynamic workforce by providing a platform for undergraduates to gain work experience in the private sector. BCPNG President Nuni Kulu says this is the gap our country needs to address.
And particularly in our innovative program, it allows interns such as yourselves to be immersed with the 9 working groups that the council have at the moment. And this partnership is a clear sign that the students in universities like yourselves will be involved in these policy engagements and
Young Missionary Alliance is a non-profit organization that works closely with students on the university campus. Founded by the students, it focuses on helping them excel in their spiritual walk as well as academic. Organization President Clement Kemo says the partnership is part of the interns' platform to exposure and capacity building.
Them an exposure into the real world Muslim rural communities, and this engagement is like very big opportunity for young people now to have a what I call beyond the textbook engagement. So they are introduced into the real world.
Third-year law student Elishaba Ramoy Aloy was part of the policy engagements working groups. Here is what she had to say.
Involved in the process and get to have a feel of how it's actually carried out. Some of the things that we study in class and about the processes that we study, this gives us an opportunity to then engage in those processes. And then
the internship program started last week and will continue for the next 10 months. Lilian Soparakenea, National EMTV News.
PNG's Datako has successfully landed the Kumul submarine cable network in Wewak, East Sepik Province. Following the successful landing and launching in Vanimo last month, the fiber optic cable now connects to Wewak with Medang and Lorengau, the next provincial capitals. PNG Datako Managing Director Paul Comboy says this connectivity is a milestone for information technology in East Sepik as it promotes fast, affordable and reliable internet access. The cable will now run to Medang via a transit connection point from Lorengau. Comboy added the fiber optic connection will put PNG on the map in the digital economy with improved e-learning for the education sector and improved e-market for the informal sector. Work on the cable laying in Wewak will take a week before it is pulled to Medang and Manus provinces. Coming up next on National EMTV News, the latest on the coronavirus outbreak and the impact on PNG's economy. Stay with us for the details. Welcome back to the news. Leading economists in Papua New Guinea are concerned over the unexpected impact of the coronavirus on PNG's economy. Bank South Pacific CEO Robin Fleming, in an exclusive interview with MTV's Business PNG program this week, said the coronavirus was unexpected, so it will affect businesses in the airline and hotel industries, as well as supply chains for businesses in the country. Other key figures in the PNG business community are also expressing concern, saying the overall GDP growth rate for PNG will be negatively affected, as well as imports and exports between PNG and China.
A World Bank economic update for PNG earlier this year predicted that the country's GDP growth rate would be at 3% this year, which is lower than the previous year outlook predictions. This could be further affected as the unexpected coronavirus outbreak continues. The BSP CEO, who has been in the banking industry of Papua New Guinea for over 40 years, says the economic outlook for PNG will be challenging for this year, given the coronavirus outbreak eventuating in the first quarter of the year.
It is. It's unexpected, and that's what if you're an individual, you have an unexpected expense. How do you have what reserves do you have to meet that unexpected expense? Is it savings or something else? Then the same applies with government and businesses will find that the number of people coming into PNG is less because of travel restrictions, which will have an impact on Air New Guinea, no doubt have an impact on hotels. Supply chains across various business streams, whether it's going to be electronics, other support industries will also be somewhat challenged during the course of this year. So we expect it to be difficult.
Institute of National Affairs Executive Director Paul Barker says the effects of the coronavirus are affecting the global economy in relation to China and the United States, and that there is a lot of uncertainty around it, where the PNG government may be forced to undertake extra spending.
There are a lot of different ways that virus is going to affect the economy, as well as, of course, on the other side, the government having to spend a lot of money on prevention and then of management and establishing. So that will require, again, that the government collects that money or diverts that money from other activities that are already in the budget. So
concerns are raised by economists on the possibilities of transport industries being affected by the coronavirus situation, which would affect export and import mechanisms for key drivers of the PNG economy.
You've seen a big reduction in trade. You've seen a reduction in manufacturing in China, particularly in those provinces, Wuhan and much of northern China. But China is the manufacturing hub of the world, so they manufacture products or partial products which are then completed in other countries, merged with other products and completed. So the level of shipping has been reduced, level of aviation, air traffic has gone down.
The PNG economic outlook remains positive, according to the World Bank in its last update, but it also reveals there is risk involved with the coronavirus situation. This is especially for businesses operating in PNG that deal with China. Dennis Orere, National EMTV News.
The Sundown Provincial Coronavirus Response Team have set up an emergency hotline number to report any persons crossing the PNG-Indonesian border at the Wutung border post in Vanimo. This follows a total ban on border crossing issued by provincial government as PNG steps up measures to counter the spread of the deadly virus. The hotline number is 74611086. The public is advised to report any illegal crossing along the border. A team from the National Department of Health has been visiting schools in the nation's capital to do awareness on coronavirus and other related infections. The team visited various elementary, primary and secondary schools this week and will continue next week. Health Promotions Technical Officer Glenda Suagu said the awareness is about educating students on basic health and hygiene practices so that they are well informed about the coronavirus.
The awareness program was carried out by the Health Department's Health Promotion Branch with support from UNICEF. The program started on Monday with the team visiting various schools in the nation's capital, and today they visited St. John's Primary School to do awareness on coronavirus.
Elementary schools, government-run elementary and primary schools, and some technical and secondary schools. A total of 39 elementary schools have been covered, 37 primary and 6 secondary and 1 technical schools in NCD has been covered all through this week. For government-run schools, only some secondary schools and national high school yet to cover.
The awareness program is about providing basic information about the virus. Students were taught about its causes, how it spreads, and how to prevent the virus from spreading. The awareness team also provided schools with charts and booklets, including other information about the virus. According to Health Promotions Technical Officer Glenda Suagu, they are also using this opportunity to do awareness on other related infections.
You can only cut off the transmission of coronavirus as well as other hygiene-related diseases only through hygiene practice, and that is the key, and that is the message that we want to get across to students in NCD and also throughout the country.
The technical officer also highlighted the importance of health awareness in schools in the country. She said due to overcrowding in schools, there is a need for more awareness on health and hygiene in schools, and the government must step in to support these awareness programs.
the school environment is not conducive. So we want the government to support these programs, and we have to print more posters, more pamphlets, more leaflets in logistics terms, in disseminating these posters and information throughout the country, so all our school children must know of this, and that can be replicated in to their families and also to the general public.
The awareness program will continue next week, which will see the team visiting more government schools. According to Swagu, they are only visiting government schools, but there are also plans to visit private schools.
We were not able to capture the private institutions in this activity because it was outside of our plan, and also we do not have enough funding to cover the private sector.
Rayon Lakingu National, MTV News.
The National Executive Council is yet to receive the information paper that contains recommendations on measures to prevent or prepare the country if and when faced with the coronavirus. The information paper will come from relevant agencies. These agencies include the National Department of Health, Immigration, Foreign Affairs, Department of Transport, Aviation, Communication and their respective ministries. The Acting Secretary for Health, Dr. Paisen Dakulala, has confirmed that there are ongoing deliberations with relevant agencies for their input on the information paper. This comes as authorities, including WHO, continue to screen incoming passengers at the Jackson's International Airport and at the 3 seaports where ships are required to go through quarantine. To date, only Asian countries have 14-day requirements for medical certificate clearance before entering the country, but the virus has now been transmitted to 88 countries, with more than 90,000 confirmed cases and over 3,000 deaths, mainly in China. The World Health Organization has now raised COVID-19 to a very high level. Meanwhile, NEC is expected to receive the information paper next week. Meanwhile, a cruise ship off the coast of San Francisco is the latest to be caught up in the outbreak. Thousands of passengers have been confined to their cabins and left to wait in limbo offshore after a former passenger died from the virus.
Cargo. Coronavirus testing kits lowered onto the deck of the Grand Princess cruise ship in a dramatic mission by the US Coast Guard. Dozens of people on board are showing symptoms after a passenger who had already disembarked died of COVID-19 in California.
The guests should remain in their staterooms for the remainder of the cruise.
Until the results are known, the ship, with its 2,500 passengers, is barred from docking.
The longer we're kept in this confined space, the more likely we're going to catch the virus just because there's nowhere else for us to go.
2 other former passengers infected with the virus are in California hospitals, the governor declaring a state of emergency. Further north, Washington state's being described as the front line of America's fight against coronavirus, with the death toll at 1 nursing home rising to 9.
This is a period of substantial anxiety in our state.
Vice President Mike Pence in Washington state today to offer support, but also admitting the nation doesn't have enough testing kits. On Wall Street, a major drop. The Dow Jones suffering its 5th worst day on record, down 3.5%. Congress taking swift action, coughing up a $13 billion emergency aid package. Italy recorded 41 more deaths overnight, taking their total to 148, the second highest death toll after China. And the UK's recorded its first coronavirus fatality, a woman in her 70s.
This is not a drill. This is not the time to give up.
In Australia, 1,200 students from this Sydney high school have been forced to stay home after a teenage classmate tested positive. Students there joining nearly 300 million children around the world sent home as authorities try to limit the virus's spread.
Hundreds of concert goers could have come into casual contact with the latest person to test positive for coronavirus in New Zealand. Health officials today confirmed the man attended a tour concert at Auckland Spark Arena last Friday, attended by more than 10,000 people. The death toll is now more than 3,385 across the globe, most in China, and there are more than 96,000 confirmed cases in 88 countries and territories. However, a vast majority of those people have recovered.
A packed arena now on alert. Our fourth person with COVID-19 was here last Friday. Others around him, here in the front left, are now at risk.
It's virtually impossible to identify who those people might be.
The fear is he may have been infectious.
Our assessment is that the risk is low and that the people who we are considering as casual contacts are those who were in the standing area at the concert.
He's the husband of our second confirmed case. They'd both been in Italy. Officials say they've had a battering on social media. The woman maintains she did everything right and told staff, "We've had very, very, very few symptoms." Those airing their concerns online are being urged to keep calm.
If you as a parent are stressing out and anxious and giving off lots of anxiety messages, it's highly likely your kids will do the same.
Glenbrook's steel mill, south of Auckland, is also on alert. Our third case worked here, the man who hadn't been overseas at all and likely caught the virus from family who had. So far, the virus hasn't surfaced outside Auckland, but preparations are advanced. This is a negative air pressure room at Waikato Hospital, ready to receive any coronavirus cases.
To call it business as usual would not be right.
Staff are worried about being inundated by patients.
Now, if we use personal protective equipment and correct nursing and doctoring the way we know we should do, that really reduces the risk right down.
Border restrictions are still in force, catching out overseas sports competitors who spend thousands getting to Rotorua for an event.
We don't want to be discriminated by people just because we are Italian.
They arrived before restrictions for people from Italy, but were told to go into isolation anyway.
Like, it's not our fault. I mean, if you want to check if we have the virus, then maybe I could understand.
They can't get a test because they don't have symptoms. Symptoms those who are at Spark Arena are being told to look out for.
In other news making headlines overseas, the civil war in Syria affecting millions caught in the crossfire. Stay tuned for details after the break. Welcome back to the news. Amidst the politics and the bloodshed on the battlefield are, of course, the millions of Syrians caught in the crossfire. Many have already fled from Idlib province into uncertain futures. But for those who have stayed behind, everyday life is on the edge.
The children's smiles belie the depth of their trauma. The school is one of many sheltering the displaced, the blaring music temporarily drowning out the sounds of the explosions on the front line, just a 15-minute drive away. Even at their tender age, they know death can come in an instant. Dara is trying to have fun, gingerly keeping her weight off her injured foot. I was eating an apple with my sister, and then the rocket hit us, she remembers. I looked, and I could only see dust and blood. That strike happened a week ago at the school just next door, where Dalat's family, along with others, were living. A rocket slammed into the schoolyard, killing 7 children and wounding many more. Darat's father shows us her bandaged foot, grateful his daughter is still alive, agonizing over how he is supposed to even protect his children. I am used to the sounds of the planes hitting, Darat says, but since we got hit, I'm scared of it.
They've been training the kids on what to do if they hear explosions or the bombings come close. So one is shelter in place, and then the other, though, is to follow the arrows painted on the walls to go towards the bunker.
It's not a real bunker, just a room underground that used to store the now dust-covered school books. The skies outside the town are painted with the streaks of fighter jets. In the early hours the next morning, a chicken farm being used to house the displaced was decimated, crushing many of those who sheltered there in their sleep, including children. Hospitals are overwhelmed, dealing not only with illnesses and disease, but the constant flow of the wounded. There is no sanctity here, least of all for civilian life. In the last month, Turkey has upped its military involvement, battering regime positions. This group of fighters we meet close to the front is mostly made up of young men who were in high school when Syria's revolution turned into a war. The Turkish presence is preventing the regime from advancing on the ground. 26-year-old Abu Saad says, "Our fight is about defending the population, my wife, my children." But how to truly protect this population? It's not really in these fighters' control. It's in Turkey and Russia's hands. They, the main two powers, bartering for Idlib's fate. No matter what is negotiated, there have been too many promises, too many broken ceasefires, too many sham agreements. Pain haunts every street.
His son died right here. That's still his blood on the wall.
Muhammad was just 12. His older brother tells us they ran when they saw the plane, but Muhammad didn't make it. I tried to pick him up, but I couldn't, Hussein remembers. Muhammad died in his arms. Even celebrations are bittersweet. These women are shopping for dresses for their relative's wedding. But it won't be a lavish affair. It's not the sort of happiness where you invite everyone, the groom's sister tells us. It will be small with immediate family. There's just too much misery and fear that a big crowd will get bombed. Since December, around 1 million have been displaced, cramming into any empty space they can find, even this prison. The families here sleep with their clothes on, not knowing when they might need to run out. Marine's father was killed fighting years ago. He used to play a lot with us when he was alive, she remembers. As we leave, we come across what's known as the graveyard camp, for even the dead are displaced, buried as close as possible to the border with Turkey, in the hopes that at least they can rest in peace.
Up next, some sporting updates in Chukai Sports. Stay with us.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome to Chukai Sports. Rachel Sapuri-James has been in intense recovery and training, preparing for the upcoming Oceania triathlon event in a bid to secure a qualification in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Rachel's preparation has been more challenging after pregnancy.
Papua New Guinea triathlete Rachel Sapuri-James created history for Papua New Guinea by becoming the first triathlete to finish an elite international level triathlon race at the 2018 Commonwealth Games. Fast forward to 2020 and she has her eyes set on the Olympic stage. But Rachel had to overcome post-pregnancy before getting herself fit for competition.
Have to figure out how am I going to get this strength back to be able to run. And a big issue with my post-pregnancy comeback, I had pre-eclampsia, where my body swelled up and put on a lot of weight. So pre-pregnancy at Commonwealth Games, to give an example, I was 58 kilograms, like super stripped athlete, ready at my peak for that race. And then pregnancy, I went up to 94 kilograms, which is pretty big percentage of weight gain, but a lot of it was just this fluid retention, and I had high blood pressure with my pregnancy.
She has put in the hard yards and has gotten back in shape, thanks to the support of the high-performance staff and her coaching staff as well.
When I first started, it was tough. It was very tough. And I just had to keep telling myself, it's going to get better, we're going to get that strength back. And working with high performance and my trainer, Wendy Albert, it's been fantastic. A lot of support and encouragement, which helps. Because, yeah, we push ourselves as athletes, but it's always good to have that positive support and encouragement around us to help us push through when it's pain.
she has a tough task ahead as she scrambles together to set a course for upcoming Oceania triathlon competitions, which serve as a pathway to qualify for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics.
Qualifying pathways. So firstly, we're looking at all the Oceania Cup races in our region, and at the moment my first race that I'm preparing for is the Oceania Continental Cup Championships. This is early April on the Gold Coast, and it's a very competitive major regional race. All the top elite athletes from Australia, New Zealand will pretty much fill the field, and usually myself representing Pacific Islands. But hopefully we see some more other girls from Oceania Pacific Islands having a go this year as well, as alongside myself.
Felix Sukina National, EMTV Sports.
New Zealand's National Track and Field Championship started in Christchurch today with top sprinters Eddie Nketiah and Zoe Hobbs quickly confirming their favouritism to retain their national titles.
Opening day at the National Athletics Championships, and the first of the standouts in action, sprinter Eddie Nketiah, humming down the track with a time of 10.49 seconds for the 100 metres.
So here he is, the big man pulling away.
Revealing he sings to himself while racing to help him concentrate.
I'm a bit of a all-rounder, so I listen to old school and new school, but lately I've been listening to David Bowie and Queen and the Rolling Stones. Always got to keep it old school.
Earlier with a tailwind, 22-year-old sprint queen Zoe Hobbs looked on track to defend her national title after easing to victory in her heat in 11.46 seconds.
Zoe showing a very clean pair of heels.
I've actually been feeling really good in training, like hitting PBs in training. Been a little bit unlucky with conditions so far, so hopefully tonight is able to turn it on.
Although the ongoing coronavirus threat could derail her Olympic qualification hopes.
As far as we know, the Olympics are still going ahead, but it may be due to change later in the course. It also makes qualification events coming up a little bit of a touch and go.
We're going to have a couple of athletes after this weekend that are right on the fringe of where they need to be high enough in the rankings to get into Tokyo.
So plenty at stake over the next 3 days in Christchurch, especially for Fast Eddie, who'll need to keep channeling those famous Freddie Mercury lyrics if he's to produce his own kind of magic in the 100 final tonight.
Chukai Sports continues with more after these messages. Don't go away.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome back to Chukai Sports. There's a huge gap between Oceania women playing rugby union. New Zealand and Australia are ranked in the top 10, while the rest of the Oceania nations are ranked outside of the top 10. PNG is ranked 43rd out of 56 nations.
Women's rugby union in the Oceania region is growing, and continuous hosting of regional tournaments and international fixtures will help the game grow even further. Competition manager for Oceania Rugby, Wayne Schuster, is optimistic that hosting of international fixtures by individual countries will help feed the appetite of rugby enthusiastic women, especially in the Pacific of the Oceania region.
Having test matches or tournaments, or so to speak, which do feature and promote and highlight women's rugby, only lifts the profile of women's rugby, and it's certainly something that we really want to capitalise on, especially with the growing interest of rugby within our Pacifica women.
There is a huge gap, though, between the Oceanian nations in women's rugby. New Zealand and Australia are the top Oceania women in the world rugby rankings. New Zealand ranked first in the world with Australia 6th, followed by Samoa in 16th place, Fiji in 22nd and Tonga in 27th. PNG though has dropped to 43rd position in the world rankings out of 56 nations.
There is perhaps a gulf between your top teams, Australia and New Zealand and the Pacific, but that's the whole purposes of having these rugby championships, providing more content, providing more international exposure for our Pacific teams. It's only through high-level competition are we able to progress and develop. And we at Oceania Rugby, together with our member unions, especially Papua New Guinea, are dedicated and committed to ensuring that we provide those stepping stones for our Pacific teams.
Felix Sukina National, EMTV Sports.
And to rugby abroad, the coronavirus continues to disrupt the Rugby World Tour, with Italy taking yet another hit.
Already had their Six Nations match against Ireland postponed. Their clash with England next weekend, which was due to be held in Italy behind closed doors, has now also been canned. But according to the England camp, it's not been a distraction.
We're in training camp and focused on what's in front of us, and that's a massive test against Wales this weekend.
We're back at Twickenham after another 2-week break, and we're playing quality team in Wales. So for us, it's been all systems going, trying to prepare as well as we can.
20,000 England fans were expected to travel to Rome for the weekend. Organisers are adamant the postponed fixtures will all be replayed at a later date. Another team dealing with the fallout of coronavirus measures is Japan's Sunwolves, playing in red here, forced to play their latest home match in Wollongong against the Brumbies as the curtain raiser for the Chiefs. And they could have done with some real home advantage.
In the wide channels, they stand off Valentini, and the Brumbies score as the siren sounds.
The Brumbies winning 47-14 just moments ago. And further afield, the English Premier League is taking coronavirus action of its own. The pre-match handshake has been given the boot, some clubs even banning players from signing autographs or taking selfies with fans.
And that ends Trukai Sports. The weather details coming up next.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Some evening showers in Port Moresby and Popondetta. Cloudy with evening showers in Daru. Mostly fine with a few showers later tonight in Kerema. And mostly fine weather in Alotau. In the Mamasa region, mostly fine weather in Lae. Some showers in Wau. Evening showers in Medang, Wewak and Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine weather in Lorengau, evening showers in Kavieng, a few showers in Kokopo, Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, cloudy with evening showers, then morning fog right across the region in Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mindi and Wabek. Forecast for small crafts for the next 24 hours. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border to Daru, to Kerema, to Hood Point, Tarama Coast, with waters of East Cape to Cape Vogel, to Finschhafen, including waters of Finschhafen through Vitiaz and Dampier Straits to Siasi Islands to Long Island, and with waters of Long Island to Medang to Bogia, with waters of New Ireland, East and West New Britain and Bougainville seas of 0.5 to 1 metre. Waters of Samari Island and eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, and with waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas of 0.5 to 1.3 metres. Waters of Wewak to Aitape to Vanimo, PNG Indonesian border, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 metres. A look at the ocean forecast. The PNG areas in the Coral Sea, seas smooth with southwest winds at 0.5 to 10 knots. In the Solomon Sea, seas slight with southeast to southerly winds at 10 to 15 knots. In the Bismarck Sea, seas slight with west to northwesterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas slight with west to northwest winds at 10 to 15 knots.
weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And before we go, scientists who identified a new species deep in an ocean trench have also made a disturbing discovery. Despite living almost 7 kilometers below the surface, the seabed was full of plastic.
The secret and silent world we've not yet fully explored, the deep sea. But our impact is already being felt by the marine life that calls it home. Meet Eurythenes plasticus, named after one of its main characteristics, plastic.
And the plastic that it most resembled was PET. So that's the plastic that is found in plastic bottles.
The new species, discovered 6,900 metres below the surface, already poisoned by humans above.
Deep sea animals have an amazing ability to eat just about anything, right? So that's almost our downfall. The problem is plastic hasn't been around long enough for them to have evolved a detection strategy. It said, oh, wait a minute, that's a bottle top.
A team from England's Newcastle University discovered the crustacean in the Mariana Trench, which lies in the Pacific Ocean between Japan and the Philippines. It's unexplored habitat, but it's already contaminated.
It's in the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, and now in the most remote parts of our world.
8 million tonnes of plastic waste are dumped into the world's oceans every year, with 53% originating from Southeast Asia. The plastic prawn now playing a vital role as an ambassador in the war on pollution.
And that's the way it is this Friday, the 6th of March 2020. On behalf of the entire EMTV News team, have a pleasant weekend. Good night.